I think it's really important for people when they hear about this struggle going on in Springfield and this impasse, it's really about the future of the state. And are we going to make it easier for people like this to open businesses here, to keep businesses here, to employ the people in this area that they employ? Or are we going to continue to push them away to El Paso, Texas, like you just heard today? These things matter. This isn't some personal agenda battle. Talking about bringing the cost of doing business down, talking about helping with property taxes is about helping the people outside there working those machines right now be able to continue to get the best job they're capable of getting. I really appreciate Governor Rauner being here in the suburbs, showing his commitment not just to the suburbs but also to this concept, and I very much appreciate his continued battle for that future that hopefully means more and better jobs for the type of people just outside that window working right now. Thank you all very much, and Governor, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Senator. Thank you all very much for joining us here this morning at Keats Manufacturing. Manufacturing is a major job creator, one of the most important sectors of the Illinois economy. If we're not competitive in manufacturing, it's going to be virtually impossible for us to grow the overall economy. We won't be able to grow our healthcare, our education, our transportation, our agricultural sectors fast enough to make up for massive losses in manufacturing. We have got to be competitive in manufacturing. Manufacturing, unfortunately, is growing in states like Texas and states like Indiana and other states. We have not been growing in manufacturing in Illinois. In fact, we're bleeding out jobs in manufacturing. Manufacturing jobs are good paying jobs. Even at the earlier, more entry-level jobs, manufacturing, it pays well. And every new manufacturing job creates another 4 or 5 jobs around it. Manufacturing is core to Illinois' success. We're meeting here with many small manufacturing firms, listening to their concerns, as we have been for the last 3 years. And we've heard today, as we have repeatedly around the state, workers' comp costs, regulatory burden, property tax burden, and frankly, the lack of training in high school for the types of technical jobs that manufacturers need: welders, mechanics, technicians, maintenance workers. These are jobs that young people coming out of high school can step right into if our school system gives them some of the technical skills. Not every student is going to a 4-year college, and not every student needs to go to a 4-year college to have a good career. Welders can make more than $40,000, $50,000 a year. These are good jobs, especially for someone who's late teenage or early 20s. We need to correlate our education system to the jobs that are available and make sure that everybody in Illinois has a good paying career and rising income. That's essential to our success. Tragedy is, in large part, because manufacturers have been leaving Illinois at such a rapid pace. We have fewer jobs in Illinois than we had in 1999. And as a result, because we have fewer jobs, we have lower family incomes. Growth, more jobs, companies competing to hire workers is essential to getting family incomes rising. And we'll never fund our pensions, we'll never fund our deficits, we'll never pay down our unpaid bill backlog if we're not growing our economy. We can't simply think that raising taxes alone will solve the problem. As I've heard from many employers, and one of the biggest employers that we were trying to recruit to Illinois, many have said, Governor, we can't go from one failed state to another. Many companies are leaving the big deficit states like New Jersey and Connecticut. They'd like to come to Illinois because we got a better location in the middle of the United States and great hardworking people. But because of our debt and our deficits and our constant deficit spending and irresponsible financial management, they say, we can't come there. You got to show that taxpayers matter and that the regulatory climate won't punish our ability to grow our companies. And that's what our reforms are really all about, and that's what we're here discussing today. With that, I'd be happy to answer questions. Also, would encourage any of the other employers or leaders, community leaders who are here to answer any questions you might have as well. Questions?
So, Governor, does it appear as though this legislative working group, that you're prepared to accept their work product at this point, and you are waiting for the speaker, if you will, to buy in?
Well, I am encouraged by the work of the bipartisan working groups. They've been working now for many, many weeks, I think, on a good faith basis. It's separate from me, separate from their leaders, which I think is great. And from the feedback I'm receiving, I'm cautiously optimistic. There's bipartisan willingness to come together. Everybody's going to have to do some things they'd rather not do. I am not a tax fan. I'd rather cut all taxes. But given our debt and given some of what we might have to do to accommodate some of the Democrats' interests, I'm willing to look at new revenues and be supportive. I'm supportive of a grand compromise. The critical thing to me is that we have reforms so we can grow our economy and help these businesses. Many members, the rank and file members in the General Assembly, have indicated they're willing to do a grand compromise, and we're hopeful that the leaders will be open to that as well. We're waiting to see.
It does seem as if the speaker is sending the message that he just doesn't believe you on the tax question. He doesn't think that you will agree to some tax hikes.
I've said it for over a year. I'm willing to look at new revenues and be supportive of new revenues. I think getting in front of the General Assembly on, I have not commented specifically on anything that the working groups have recommended yet. I will at the right time, but I've said repeatedly, I'm open. I think if you hear the statements on the other side, you don't hear openness. I'm open to a grand compromise, doing things I'd rather not do. I've been very clear about that.
We're down to 2 weeks and a day.
Yeah.
Before session ends. Is it that you are ready to deal and you're waiting on him to communicate to you? Where are we? I think taxpayers want to know, where are we right now? I mean, we're 2 weeks from the end.
Well, I believe, again, that the working groups are generating some good compromise ideas, and I am supportive of their compromise ideas that I've heard about so far. I don't want to get in front of them, let them introduce what they'd recommend. I've heard some initial ideas on tax reform. I've heard some ideas on spending reductions. I've heard, not publicly but privately, some good ideas on reforms around workers' comp and local control and government structural inefficiencies. I haven't heard any of those come publicly yet. I'm just cautiously optimistic. Now, the good news is we have still 2 weeks left, and many of you here have been students of Illinois politics for a long time. Most big things in Illinois government kind of get done at the 11th hour, sort of in the middle of the night when not everybody's aware of exactly what happened. And so we've got as you said, 2 weeks. And really, given that most things are already in bill form, and what's not in bill form could be put into a bill within a day or two. So I think we can all stay optimistic until May 30th, and we'll keep encouraging a grand bargain, a grand compromise.
Level of trust with the speaker at this point, though, I mean, after a year of dealing with him, how much?
This is an issue of, will the members of the General Assembly come together on a bipartisan basis and stand up and do a grand bargain? That's really what it boils down to. The good news is, I know, because I've got a lot of friends on the Democratic side of the aisle, many friends, and more than folks realize. And people are ready to do a grand compromise, and we'll see whether they'll stand up and publicly do that. I'm cautiously optimistic that they will, but I don't know.
Governor, you referenced workers' comp. I know it's a huge issue for people here in Keats. There's several ways to get to a bottom line number. Causation, obviously, is a huge bugaboo on the other side. They say they're willing to do a pretty big restructuring of some of the reimbursement tables for the injuries. If that got to 20%, 30%, would that be sufficient? What's your view? Instead of doing causation, if costs were lowered some other way, would that be acceptable?
Well, again, I don't want to jump ahead and say exactly what each reform has to be. I think it's premature for me to do that. To me, the critical issue is that the reforms are real and they're material changes. We are not competitive on workers' comp, and we need to be competitive. There are various, as you point out, there are various ways to do that. I'll say this, that the Attorney General has publicly said causation should be part of our system. She's not a Republican. These are not partisan issues. This is about, will Illinois be competitive in our economy? And that's what I'm asking. Whatever form the changes come, let's make them real and material so we can be competitive.
And your view of casinos, Governor, 5 casinos have been suggested as part of the working group's plan.
Yeah.
Is that something you could accept, that many new ones?
Let me say a couple things about gaming. I'm not a fan of gaming. I don't like to gamble. I think it's a tax on people who cannot afford the tax. But it's voluntary. A lot of people love gaming. It's here. It ain't going away. Chicago has a casino. It's in Gary. That's a problem. We have Chicagoans gambling and getting the economic benefit to the state of Indiana. That's a problem. And I'm a local control person. If there's a community that loves gaming and wants to do something in gaming, I'm open-minded. I'm supportive of a grand bargain, and that could be inclusive of a lot of different ideas.
But are you telling us essentially that we're not going to see any movement on this budget issue for another 2 weeks until the 11th hour?
That's all I'm saying is that's been the pattern in the past. I hope that's not the pattern this time, but I don't know.
What are you and your team doing right now in order to move forward on this grand bargain? What's happening today?
Well, I'm on to Springfield from here. I'll be meeting with members of the General Assembly. And our staff is in constant communication. Our Office of Management and Budget, our legislative liaisons, we're in constant communication with Democrats and Republicans in the caucuses, talking about their concerns, their ideas, encourage them to keep meeting. You know, the frustration level gets really high. You know, when we're all human beings, I've certainly been frustrated. I mean, you can let your emotions out sometimes at the wrong time. We're all human. We're all trying to do the best we can. I think we need to take a deep breath, take a step back, and I'm trying to support and encourage. There are many members in the Democratic caucus who want to do the right thing and they want to stand up. You know, it's scary because you can get retribution, and you know, politics this is not tiddlywink. So, you know, but I think that people realize that the right thing to do, and I believe, and I quoted, there's a leader in the Democratic caucus in the House, Elaine Nekritz, who's from the district just right down the road. She is certainly not a Republican. And she publicly, she's one of the few who said publicly what most say in private. Our grand bargain, a budget should involve some new revenues, some spending reductions, and some reforms to grow the economy. She has said it publicly, and she's correct. And I'm trying to encourage those who've said it privately to also say it publicly, and let's see if we can't get it done.
So the headlines about something different than just there's a Tribune analysis last week about lead in water around Illinois.
Yeah.
Several communities, like more than 100 communities have had levels higher than what the EPA wants. So is this on your radar, and what are you doing?
Well, it's very much on my radar. I've been active in these kind of issues as a private citizen for a long time. I'm frustrated that this is only now getting much public discussion because of Flint, Michigan. This has been a problem for a long time. And I've asked our Department of Public Health to have their own process of measuring lead in our water systems. That's underway, well underway. It is a cause of concern. There's no question that Illinois people, especially our young people, are consuming some water that there is no safe level of lead. There is no such thing that I've heard about. There is no safe level. We set some random thresholds by the EPA or others. The reality is we shouldn't have lead in our systems. But the tragedy is Illinois construction, especially in the city of Chicago, but around the state, has relied on lead piping for 100 years. And wow, the process of trying to either change that or mitigate it is really challenging. The good news is, I know enough about, I'm a former chemist in my college days, the water in Illinois tends to have minerals in it that bond to the lead piping, and it creates a coating so that the lead exposure goes down over time. But if there's construction or new pipes that come in, or if the piping is shaken and rattled and the coating breaks off, that exposes that water to lead again, and the exposure levels can go up. It's a very difficult challenge that we're going to have to deal with in the future years.
So, Governor,
Yes.
would it be fair if you read a headline that said you were cautiously optimistic, would that be a headline you'd reject? I mean,
Well, no, I say it every day. I am cautious. I'm an optimistic person. I couldn't do this job if I weren't. I mean, I believe in Illinois. I believe in the people of this state, and we can. Yeah. I'm optimistic that the rank and file members in both sides of the aisle want to get a deal and want to do a grand compromise. That makes me optimistic. You hear the same statements coming from leaders occasionally that, you know, maybe are a little bit contrary to that, and all we've got to do is try to stay persistent and see what we can do.
Last question, could you weigh in as well, in the midst of all of this, the Lucas Museum? Is that on your radar at all?
Well, I'll say a couple things about it. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for the people of Illinois to grow our economy and grow tourism. I mean, how often does somebody come along and say they're willing to spend $700 million to build something that could draw tourists? That's That's a big plus. And I quickly signed the legislation and advocated for the legislation to allow it to go in the parking lot where it was first proposed. I think that's all upside, no downside. We already have a museum campus all right there. We got a lot of very interesting, we can all debate what's architecturally good or bad. That's not my role, but we have very interesting buildings all right there. We got 5 or 6. Adler and the Shed and it's all right, and the Soldier Field and the McCormick Place, it's all right there. And this would go in a parking lot between 2 very substantial buildings. To me, that's all upside. And I think it could be a huge a tourist revenue generator. In terms of other locations, you know, there's clearly on the second option that came up, huge taxpayer costs in that. This is just not debatable. And to me, I don't think that's necessary. I think the first location is a good one, and I'm an advocate for it. I hope the mayor stays strong. I hope the Lucas family stays persistent, and Melody, you know, stays the course. And I believe they'll win in court eventually. I'm sorry the court process takes a while, but I think they should win because I think it's the right thing for the people of Chicago and the people of Illinois. Okay, thanks very much, everybody.